Griselda Blanco is suspected of being involved in 40 murders across the U.S., including all 3 of her husbands.
At its height, her network was pushing $80 million a month in cocaine.
The journey of a girl born into the chaos of Colombia, where poverty and violence were as common as the air she breathed. Griselda Blanco, known by many names, the Godmother, the Black Widow, Queenpin, emerged from the shadows to wield power over a billion-dollar empire fueled by blood and cocaine, stretching its tendrils from Colombia to the United States. Now her story unfolds in the riveting drama of the Netflix series, Griselda. But who was the woman behind the legend? Blanco's life was a tapestry woven with threads of reality and myth, a saga where truth danced with fiction in the shadows of a violent world. Born on February 15, 1943, Blanco's early years coincided with a tumultuous period in Colombia's history. La Violencia, a dark chapter marked by widespread bloodshed and political turmoil, cast a long shadow over her homeland. The assassination of George Eliezer Gaetan in 1948 ignited a firestorm of violence that consumed the nation for a decade, leaving behind a staggering toll of 200,000 lives lost. Against this backdrop of chaos, Blanco came of age, a witness to the brutal realities of power and survival. Historian Elaine Carey aptly noted that in such a world, power often flowed from the barrel of a gun. But how did a young girl from the streets of Colombia rise to become the formidable force known as Griselda Blanco? The answer lies in the crucible of her upbringing, where poverty and violence forged her into a woman unafraid to seize control of her destiny, no matter the cost. Griselda Blanco, navigating the gritty streets of Medellín, a city pulsating with poverty and desperation. In this unforgiving environment, power was a scarce commodity, but Blanco was determined to carve out her slice of it. At just 11 years old, Blanco took her first steps into the criminal underworld, allegedly orchestrating a kidnapping that ended in tragedy when her ransom scheme went awry. But Blanco was no stranger to adversity. She adapted, honing her skills in pickpocketing and counterfeiting, each crime adding another notch to her belt of illicit expertise. Her path took a fateful turn when she crossed paths with Carlos Trujillo, a man deeply entrenched in the world of forgery and human trafficking. Their union bore fruit in the form of 3 children, but beneath the facade of domesticity simmered a tumultuous relationship that eventually crumbled into divorce. And when Trujillo met his demise in the mid-1970s, whispers of Blanco's involvement in his death echoed through the underworld. Meanwhile, the disco-fueled frenzy of the 1970s ushered in a new era of opportunity and peril. Cocaine, the drug of choice for partygoers and thrill-seekers, transformed Colombia into the epicenter of a lucrative trade. Blanco, alongside her second husband Alberto Bravo, seized upon this burgeoning market, setting their sights on the neon-lit streets of New York. With Bravo at her side, Blanco orchestrated the rise of a cocaine empire, navigating treacherous waters fraught with law enforcement and rival cartels. Their success hinged on a network of smugglers willing to go to extreme lengths, even resorting to ingenious methods like concealing drugs in specially designed undergarments to evade detection at international borders. As Blanco's star rose in the underworld, so too did the shadows of danger and betrayal that lurked at every turn. But for a woman like Griselda Blanco, adversity was simply another obstacle to overcome on the path to power and wealth. In the seedy underbelly of the criminal world, Griselda Blanco reigned supreme, a queenpin with a fortune that could rival the most notorious of crime lords. They say she was the richest female drug lord in history, her wealth soaring to $2.2 billion at the peak of her criminal empire. Even in death, her legacy lingered, leaving behind a $2 billion fortune, equivalent to $2.6 billion today when you factor in inflation. And let's not forget her real estate empire, a $500 million worth of properties that dotted the landscape like pieces on a twisted chessboard. Blanco's wealth was the stuff of legends, surpassing even the likes of John Gotti, the infamous mafioso worth a measly $30 million, and Al Capone, the American gangster whose riches paled in comparison to Blanco's empire, a mere $100 million at his peak, which today would translate to a modest $1.3 billion. Yet, for all her riches, Blanco's name would forever be intertwined with that of another infamous figure, Pablo Escobar, the titan of the cocaine trade. Despite her immense wealth, Blanco couldn't quite outshine the shadow cast by her contemporary counterpart. But as the saying goes, with great power comes great strife. Blanco's partnership with Alberto Bravo, her right-hand man in the cocaine game, soured as their empire expanded. The details of their falling out remain shrouded in mystery. But one thing is clear. Bravo met a grisly end in 1975, with Blanco claiming responsibility for his demise, a bullet to the mouth sealing his fate. Bravo's death only added fuel to the flames of Blanco's fearsome reputation. The Black Widow, they called her, a moniker earned by her alleged penchant for disposing of her husbands with deadly precision. At the height of her reign, Blanco's cocaine operation churned out a staggering $80 million worth of the white powder every single month, flooding the streets of New York, Miami, and Los Angeles with her deadly merchandise. She became known as the Godmother, a nod to her Colombian roots and a chilling echo of Vito Corleone from The Godfather. And when she gave birth to her fourth child in 1978, she christened him Michael Corleone, a name steeped in the blood-soaked mythology of her world. But make no mistake, violence was Blanco's currency, the lifeblood that fueled her empire and kept her enemies at bay. Miami became a battleground in the drug wars, with blood spilled in the streets as Blanco fought tooth and nail to protect her throne. One of the most brazen attacks occurred on a sweltering July day in 1979, when two men, likely acting on Blanco's orders, gunned down a cocaine dealer and his bodyguard in broad daylight at Miami's Dadeland Mall. It was a brutal reminder that in Blanco's world, mercy was in short supply, and only the strongest survived. In the heart of Miami's criminal underworld, Griselda Blanco's reign of terror knew no bounds. In a chilling incident that sent shockwaves through the city, Blanco ordered the assassination of her associate, Yesus Castro, after he allegedly crossed the line by striking one of her children. But the hitman's aim faltered tragically in 1982 when they mistakenly took the life of Castro's innocent 2-year-old son, Johnny, instead. As the dust settled on this horrifying mistake, Blanco's reaction was nothing short of chilling. According to one of her own assassins, George Ayala, she found a twisted sense of satisfaction in the tragedy. Initially enraged by the mismark on Castro, Blanco's mood shifted when she learned of Johnny's accidental demise. In her warped logic, the scales of vengeance had been balanced. But the cycle of violence didn't stop there. Blanco's own children became unwitting witnesses to her ruthless world. In 1983, she allegedly orchestrated the murder of her third husband, Dario Sepulveda, right before the eyes of their 5-year-old son, Michael Corleone, in Colombia. With whispers of her involvement in over 40 murders echoing through the corridors of law enforcement, Blanco danced on the razor's edge of justice. But the long arm of the law eventually caught up with her. In a coordinated effort, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, aided by informants, closed in on Blanco's trail, piecing together evidence to finally bring her to justice. Her reign of terror came crashing down on February 17, 1985, when authorities apprehended her in Irvine, California. Sentenced to 15 years behind bars, Blanco's grip on power seemed to be slipping. Yet, even from prison, her influence lingered. 9 years later, Blanco faced a new wave of charges, this time for the murders of young Johnny Castro and other drug dealers. As the legal noose tightened, Blanco's fate seemed sealed. Deported to Colombia in 2004, Blanco retreated into the shadows of Medellin's wealthiest neighborhood, El Poblado. But even in quiet seclusion, the specter of her violent past loomed large. Then, on a fateful September day in 2012, the streets of Medellín bore witness to Blanco's final chapter. As she stepped outside a butcher's shop, the crack of gunfire shattered the tranquility. 2 shots from a motorcycle-mounted assassin's weapon echoed through the air, striking Blanco down where she stood. In the end, The woman who had clawed her way from the poverty of Medellín streets met her demise on the very ground she once sought to escape.